All right, we're joined by UFC bantamweight Adrian Yanez, who got that big fight upcoming. Adrian, how's it going, man?
Man, I am doing good, man. I'm ready. I'm excited. Yeah, this fight on my end has been talked about for a very long time. So, yeah, I'm ready. I'm excited.
So we were supposed to do this, I think, last week. My laptop broke, so we had to reschedule, but it kind of worked out in the better because your fight finally gets announced. It was more just checking in, kind of seeing how close it was to this. Like, how quickly did it kind of go from negotiations to finally getting done with this fight with Rob?
Yeah, so for me, I don't know about their side, but there was talks on my side that the UFC was trying to get that fight for New York and MSG. So there's been a lot of back and forth, like just with me and the UFC, not like bad, but just like trying to see what's gonna go on, and see what the plans were. So uh like after like I think it was like in July, the name Rob came up and I was like, "Oh, fuck yeah, like I'm 100% down." So it's been a while. It's been a while, but like I in July, uh I stayed quiet, and then I finally said something on, I think, on Twitch, said something on Twitch, and somebody leaked that out, and I was like, "Oh, it is what it is. Hopefully MSG, it just fast tracks it." But couldn't find out their side supposedly didn't hear anything, so was what it was. I got offered another name. I said yes. And then they turned it down, and I'm kind of happy they did. But yeah, no, it's been back and forth. We've been trying to get a fight for a while, and then the fact that the Rob Font fight came right back around was just perfect for me, because that guy, he made his debut in the UFC whenever I was making my professional debut. So like it's kind of cool. Like it's cool to me. I'm fighting a legend. I'm fighting another guy who's been there, been at the top. Hasn't quite got to the belt yet, but uh, it's cool. Like I made my professional debut when he made his UFC debut. So to me, like I think that's just cool within itself.
Before we get more into your fight, I kind of want to touch about last year, like just the one fight. Like looking back at last year, like what are you kind of thoughts of that? Because I know you're a guy that wants to be as active as possible. It took a while to get a fight. You ended up having to take Tony, which we talked about was kind of like
Yeah.
a step back, and then it doesn't even get you a fight later that year. Like, what are your kind of overall thoughts on how last year went for you?
Yeah, so I'll say it like this, like after my fight with Davey, uh the baby came around, and I forced myself to take some time off
Mhm.
because I didn't want to, but I forced myself to take some time off just so I could be there for the first 3 months. And then once the first 3 months came, like I because they were asking me during those 3 months, like, "Hey, UFC Houston, they're coming around, like they're asking if you want to be on it." And I'm like, "Oh, man, I already made this like decision that I was gonna be there for the first 3 months, and I can't go back on that decision, because once I made that decision, I had to live by it, even with the
Mhm.
like a dream spot of mine is to be on UFC card in Houston. So I had to take a step back and be like, kind of sit back and just be a dad, be a new, like be a family for a second. So then after that, once after February was up, I went out to go train with Aljo, and then came back, and I was looking for a fight, and nothing got booked until May, and then I fought in June. So I legitimately only had like 4 or 5 weeks to train for that June fight with Tony Kelly. And yeah, after that fight, I was looking to get right back in there. Unfortunately, like like my eye got gashed, so it kind of took a little bit to heal. But uh, I I was really hoping to be in that New York card in that MSG, and I was like, I was ready. I was training for it, and then on top of that, being able to have like training partners that were in camps the whole entire time, like kept me in the gym, kept me training just in case. A lot of fighters, they don't fight to uh they don't get ready until they have a fight booked. But I was staying ready just in case a slot were to pop up or anything like that, because I really wanted the MSG card. But yeah, I was kind of just being let down the past 6 months after my fight with Tony, and I was just like, like I was just kind of sitting around calling my manager. I'm pretty sure he got annoyed with me, because I just every week it was the same thing. any news, any news, any news, any news, and just like I would call him at times, be frustrated, and he'd be settling me back down. Like, man, like I just really want to fight. I'll fight anybody. I really don't care. Like yeah, I'd take anybody. And then, uh, you know, it was just kind of like this is this right here. Like, just calm down. Don't worry. You're gonna get a fight. You're gonna get a fight. So that's been the whole thing. It was frustrating.
And then obviously on Twitter, you were vocal about wanting on that San Antonio card, making this fight in San Antonio. Was there ever talk of just moving on from this Rob fight and getting a different opponent in San Antonio?
Yes and no. Just because of timeline issues and just certain things that the UFC want to go take in directions with certain things. So I w- I immediately sent a message to my manager telling him that any UFC card that's in Texas, put me on there. And like he relayed that message back to Sean, and Sean was like, we want Giannis on every Texas card. So yeah, so it was looking really really good, and then they got to Rob Font, and pretty much it was like Sean Shelby was like, I want that fight in San Antonio, but unfortunately for whatever reason, I'm not going to speculate on my end, but they needed 2 extra weeks. So I don't know if it was like weight cut issues or whatever, but just the fact that I got Rob Font and rumors of it being in New York, I think that's pretty cool. I'm gonna go into his backyard and fight him. I think that's gonna be pretty cool.
That is something I want to ask you about. Is obviously location. I've heard maybe MSG. I've heard Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Like, do you know the exact location, or is it still like to be determined?
It's still to be determined. The only way I got that location is because someone like I saw Sherdog put it
Mhm.
on something, but I retweeted it. So that was it would be cool if it was in New York, just because man, I went up there. I went up to New York about 2 times. Trained in Long Island. I thought that was like I just loved the energy whenever I went up there. Long Island is just another version of Texas, So that to me was like really cool. But yeah, that's all the information I got. When it comes to location, I once I get my actual like contract that I can sign, now I'll probably see the location. But yeah, no, I'm hoping it's New York.
And all signs is it is a pay per view like 287, which means in front of fans too. Like, how kind of exciting is that for you to be fighting in front of a sold out crowd?
Oh man, I am super excited after that last fight in Austin, Texas. That one to me was just like it was an unreal feeling. It was an unreal thing. Just like after the knockout, just feeling the energy and like feeling the energy from people that like gave me another boost of energy. It was weird because I'd never had that feeling before, especially because all my fights were in the Apex, and then I get that first big fight in Austin, knock them out. The crowd goes crazy. It gives me the extra extra energy. It was cool, man. I can't wait to do it again in New York, if that's the actual place we're gonna be fighting at. But yeah, man, I can't wait. I really can't wait.
Are you surprised at all Rob took this fight? Like, he is ranked 6, like he is on a 2-fight lose streak. Like, I figured he'd have to fight down, but like fighting this far down, like, are you surprised this is the fight you got and he kind of accepted as well?
Yes and no. Yes, in the fact that he's not gonna have to fight like a strict wrestler. He's actually gonna fight somebody that's gonna play into it, like not play into his game, but be a
Mhm.
striker. And nobody is really kind of tested out like in my 5 fights in the UFC. No one's really kind of shot in for a takedown and try to test that out. So that he's going to be looking to, I feel he's going to be looking to wrestle and try to expose some areas. But I've been making sure I've been staying ready for everybody because in this division there's so many wrestlers. So uh, that's one thing I've been drilling a lot. But yeah, no, it was a little bit surprising, but also at the same time, he's coming off of 2 losses. He's coming off of 2 losses, one to Jose Aldo, who was at the top of the division at the time, and then also to Chito Vera, who's also at the top of the division. He might be looking at this as like his comeback fight,
Mhm.
his tune-up fight, but it's gonna be far more than a tune-up. He has to be ready for war. But yeah, that's the only reason why I feel like he would take the fight. It's either they gave him no other options, or he's thinking like this is a tune-up fight for him that's going to get him right back into the win column, and I'm stopping that at all costs.
What have you kind of made of Rob's run? Like, he has good wins, like over Garbrandt, Moraes, like Ricky Simone, Sergio Pettis. Like, obviously, he lost 2 fights in a row, but two top guys. And that's the kind of thing in MMA, which you know better than
Mhm.
anyone. Like, you've seen it, is people lose 1 or 2 fights in a row, and all of a sudden they suck and they can't beat
Oh yeah.
anyone. So, like, what have you kind of made of his run? Because even though he lost to Aldo and like Marlon, like that Marlon fight was close. The only reason he lost is just because Marlon was able to do more damage and like dropped him.
Oh yeah, 100%. I don't look at those fights and just be like, "Oh, he's done. He's trash." No, he's still very fucking dangerous. And uh like just looking at that fight, I was like, "Man, he wasn't looking terrible. He just in some areas he got complacent and he was getting caught, and then also as a fight goes on, especially in the Cheeto Vera fight, like Cheeto just doesn't stop. He actually is a notorious slow starter and starts building up, and then he gets to the point where he's super comfortable, and he's like, as soon as he gets comfortable, he's having his way with you. So, uh, and I was just like, I was legitimately just watching that fight yesterday whenever I was running. So, watching that, you can kind of see that Rob at whatever age, whatever point of point he's at right now, I just know he's not going to give up. Like he kept coming back, getting back up, and actually like he got dropped once. They scrambled around for a little bit, got back up, and he just started throwing heavy, trying to knock Cheeto out. So it's gonna be a really tough fight. Whether people are like, no, he's done. He's to me, he's not done. I feel like he's gonna be training harder than ever. He's gonna be taking me as serious as possible. Because man, if I'm being honest with you, if he doesn't beat me at this point in time, it's almost kind of just like that run, that last like shot for him to get a title is gonna be like out the window because he's like I think he's like 35
Mhm.
35 and he's kind of on the way out because he had to take pretty good amount of time off from each fight that he had. So um it's how can I say it? It's kind of like a make or break for him, and he like in his head he has to make it, and fighting a guy with their back against the fence, against the wall, they're gonna be very dangerous, and I'm 100% ready for that.
We'll have to get more into your fight, like closer to it, into another one. But just obviously, Rob past 3 fights, our main events, 5 rounders. Like, do you expect him to fight any differently now that it is just a 3 round fight and he doesn't kind of have to worry about going 5 rounds?
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's gonna put up very high volume. Either that too is either he's either gonna put up very high volume or he's gonna wrestle heavy. Just because
Mhm.
he has been rocked, like he has been rocked in a lot of his fights, and especially the last two that he had, he got dropped in both of them, and not only just once but multiple occasions. He might just want to try to wrestle. He might just try to wrestle me the whole entire time and just uh try to put my back against the fence and try to work to try to get me down. But uh, he has 15 minutes to try to do that. But also at the same time, he still has hands to worry about. So on my end is just staying nice, technical, and the openings will be there on my end. But yeah, he's definitely gonna push a pace. Just because he's fought 5 rounders before and consistently, so he knows how to train for him. And he's started very fast in those 5 round fights. So he's definitely not scared to like push the pace on it. So I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it. I haven't stopped training, man. Like I helped Rafion with this 5 round camp for Sabatello, and like this past couple camps I've helped him get ready for 5 rounds. So I seen what it takes, and I seen like what a champ camp looks like even with Aljamain. So yeah, like I'm ready for like the top level type of pace he's gonna be pushing.
Just last couple things I want to touch on is obviously the bantamweight division. Like, you beat Rob, you're kind of right at that top in that mix. Like, a rumor is obviously Sterling and Cejudo. If it ends up happening, like,
Yeah.
how would you kind of see that playing out? Like, how do you think more so the question, like, how do you think Cejudo does after all that time off?
Man, it can either do one or two things. He either got super complacent and didn't work on anything while he's been out, or he took that time to let his body heal up. Because man, after going after camp after camp after camp, man, sometimes like your body does end up taking a beating. You don't take a shot as well, and sometimes you might have just let his head to recuperate. Because in that Marlon Moraes fight, man, he took some heavy shots in that fight. You know, like he kind of had to survive a little bit. You know, not like he was still aware of what everything was going on, but he took some heavy shots, you know, and you see what happens when you go with somebody who is able to take a heavy shot, and then after that, like they don't take the time off, and then they'll get knocked out like the very next fight. Like Stipe Miocic is a perfect example. He fought Ngannou, and then he fights Daniel Cormier, and he gets knocked out. But then he took the time off, and he was able to kind of recoup his head, and he ends up stopping Daniel Cormier in his next fight. So if he took that route, he's kind of like he's going to be in a good position. If he didn't like took time off but didn't take time off, you know, he still worked on all of it, sharpening his tools and every other aspect, because you see him working with Demetrius Johnson and all that stuff. So he's definitely really taking this get back serious, because I remember talking to him in International Fight Week in last year, and he was like, yeah, no, like I'm gonna be making my comeback. And I was like, all right, cool, yeah, it'd be cool to see you in there, especially with those guys at the top right now. Every fight up there that Henry would fight would be a fun stylistic type of matchup.
I've kind of seen two different sides of the whole Cejudo thing. Some are for him getting an immediate title shot. Some would obviously like to see him get a fight after that time off. Like, what are your kind of thoughts? Like, do you think he should be getting an immediate title shot, or do you think because of the time off, you should probably have to get one and prove he's still that good?
You know, for some people like Tito Dillashaw, I was 100% like, no, he needs to fight. He needs to fight. So he had that Corey Sandhagen fight. Whether I thought he lost or won, you know, he got the win. He fights for the title. But for someone like Henry Cejudo, who was a 2-time champ, like he fought at flyweight, got the belt, then fought at bantamweight and got the belt. Retired on his own accord. Came back. He's still in that picture. He dominated everybody who they put in front of him, and I don't feel like he needs a tune-up fight, especially if he's consistently been training. But I don't feel like he can walk right. He could have walked right in. If it would have been another year, then I'd be like, yeah, maybe you need to get a tune-up or something like that, but get a fight in. But no, it's still kind of relatively fresh, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like it was never like the belt was kind of up in the air for like a couple years. You know, I think he just retired in like 2020, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not that far off, you know.
And just the last guy I want to touch on is obviously O'Malley got that win over Jan. Like, whether or not you thought he won or not, like, were you surprised? Like, even with the result, like, were you surprised he was that competitive against Jan? Because there's a lot of people thinking like he was way over his head and was just going to get smoked.
No, I never thought he was way over his head. If I'm being honest with you, like I think I even had like I put something up on like YouTube and even on my Instagram that going and watching that fight, like O'Malley, he definitely does have the skills. Never took that away from him. He's definitely had the skills to compete with some of the best in the world. It was just like how my question was always just how fragile, how durable he could be. Because, you know, again, going back to the Cheeto Vera fight and also the other fight where he threw the head kick and like kind of messed up his own leg, you know, it's like kind of questions his durability and also the strength of his resume leading up to the Pedro Munoz fight. And then I necessarily wasn't like impressed with his performance against Pedro Munoz. And then he got that fight with Jan. I was like, he has the skills to compete with him. Do I think he might break? I was like, I think he might break. But you know, I wasn't surprised. I was really surprised that of the fact that he was like durable, like he was able to take the
Mm-hmm.
shots and still keep going. So that was the only thing I was surprised about. But other than that, I knew he had the skills to compete with someone like Jan. He has the skills to compete with a lot of these guys in the bantamweight division. The grappling is still like kind of almost untested, and looking at what Jan was able to get him down, and then seeing guys like Cejudo and Alderman, like if I was him, I would hope and pray that like I would hope and pray that one of them falls out, like like they get injured in a fight, so so they don't have to. He doesn't have to fight them immediately. Get the winner of Corey and Vera as an interim title. You
Mhm.
know, that's his best case scenario on for me looking in. But because the takedowns for Jan, you know, he's not the explicit wrestler. Then you got the Olympic medalist in Henry, and you got a guy in Aldermain who are really phenomenal at wrestling and grappling. So it would be one of those things that would where he would need to hope that, you know, this like something like that happens. But he definitely has the skills to compete with a lot of the strikers. The wrestling department, there's a lot of guys who would take advantage of that, and even in the grappling aspect, I've seen him submit like Takanori Gomi, but that
Mhm.
was like strictly grappling. It's not whenever you just like going straight like MMA and mixed martial arts and start mixing it up. But yeah, no, I'm curious to see how he fares against a lot of those guys. If I'm being honest with you, just the length, the reach, the speed. He has some good timing and good placement, but that the wrestling shots that I saw from Jan, and he was able to get Sean down, and then seeing like someone like Aldermain being on top of him, I don't see that ending well.
And just final question I have, like you and Sean were obviously linked. Was it last year, 2 years ago? Like he even said you were next. Like, are you glad that fight never came to fruition at that time? Because like you guys can both be in that top, and it's obviously a much bigger fight now, and it's a fight that potentially like this year or early next year, like could be for a title.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's kind of like everything kind of happens for a reason, and for me on my end, I'm kind of I'm really glad that it happened this way because I go out there, I just starch Rob Font like and make it look so effortless that it just makes that fight so much bigger. I had to do everything on my part, just like I has to do everything on his part. Uh, like even if he loses against Cejudo or Alderman, I don't think it like completely drops his stock at all. I think it still makes the fight between me and him even bigger, if that makes sense. Because
Mhm.
we're two strikers. We're not gonna shoot in for the takedown. He might, but me, I'm not. Like I'm not gonna shoot in. I like knocking people out too much. So, but yeah, no, I think it makes it really much more of a bigger fight, and it would make it a way bigger fight, especially if he gets a title and shoot, I knock out Rob. There's a really good argument where let's just say I fight Rob, I knock him out, and since he called me out, and there's like kind of history between us, that'd be like, oh shit, you knocked out Rob, we can get that title next, you
Mhm.
know. Uh, I know there's the Cheeto Vera fight, but Cheeto would also have to do his job and win against Corey, so you know, there's a lot of give and take situations. There's a lot of opportunities that would be like there for the taking. But Sean has to do his part. I have to do my part. And if we both do our part, that fight's just going to be really, really big.
Well, Adrian, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, no, thank you so much.
Yeah.